Good morning, Joint Base Lewis McCord. Thank you for joining us for this housing update as part of our 11 o'clock Facebook Live town hall updates during this COVID times. I do want to emphasize, though, that this will be a little bit different today. We're not going to specifically focus on all things COVID here. This will be a dual purpose, answer any questions you do have about anything COVID, but really what we want to focus on today is housing updates on JBLM with Lincoln Military Housing, our great partner here on base, and some projects that they're doing short-term, mid-term, and long-term. So, but again, if you do have any questions about anything specifically COVID related, please do ask those. We'll be prepared to answer your questions at the end. So the agenda we're going to follow today is walk you through, again, some of those short, mid, and long-term things that Lincoln Military Housing is doing on base for our 5,159 homes that we have on base for residents. And then we'll talk through some of the ongoing activities through Department of the Army and Department of Defense for this partnership. And then we'll get to the Q&A there at the end. I do want to say a couple things going back to the COVID. You know, I've talked several times in these town halls, as has General George and Colonel Stainpine, as you've listened in on these. You know, this has caused a lot of strain in our community, and a lot of we're in new waters here that none of us have ever been in. We have some people that their purpose and their work right now is to stay home, and as part of Washington's initiative, stay home and stay healthy. We have some people that are picking up the pace and are working even harder than usual. You know, we've mentioned several times our logisticians are picking up the pace and working harder than ever on base. Our child development centers, obviously our healthcare workers in Madigan are working hours and hours of overtime. Our public works employees are still showing up and working hard every day to ensure that our facilities are usable and safe and quality on base. And another group that has continued to work throughout this entire COVID time and really has picked up the pace is Lincoln Military Housing. And going to the same quality and safe facilities on base, the housing specifically, it belongs to Lincoln Military Housing here on base. And we enjoy the partnership, and we appreciate the partnership here on base to make sure that those 5,159 homes are ready for residents to live in, that they have work orders that are responded to, in priority order. They work through the housing, the wait lists to get people into the housing. Nathaniel, I appreciate you being here to talk us through some of these things. And so if you don't mind, introduce yourself to the crowd really quick, tell them about yourself, and then step into kind of what your thoughts are.
Great. Well, thank you, Colonel Duncan. I am Nathaniel Stevens, Area Vice President with Lincoln Military Housing here at Joint Base Lewis McChord. And thank you so much. It's great to be here to talk about some of the things that we're focusing on right now, but then also some of the great projects and improvements that we'll see coming down the pipe later. So thank you so much. A critical focus for us right now is getting our vacant homes ready for move-in. And that's really important to us right now. We want our families to move in with Lincoln and enjoy their experience with us here at Joint Base Lewis McChord. And to our families waiting for homes, we're working very hard to get those move-ins, those vacant homes ready for move-in. And we understand and we anticipate that at some point here in the future that stop move order will be lifted. But then in addition to those homes and those ones we're working on right now, we also are constantly evaluating the needs of our customer. And that's really important to us. And, you know, as we look to the future and where we're heading, we are commencing this year 3 brand new renovations in 3 communities. The Heartwood community that's over on the McChord side, New Hill side, and Davis Hill that are both over here on the Lewis side. Those 3 communities together, it's over 1,100 homes that we're going to be commencing renovations in. So we're really excited about that. We're talking about new plumbing, new electrical, upgraded kitchens with new appliances, new bathrooms, new flooring, and then importantly, air conditioning as a part of those renovation scopes. So we're really excited about those.
I know air conditioning is one of the things that a lot of people are asking for, and typically we have not had that in any facilities anywhere on base, right? It's just not needed in the Pacific Northwest, but we've had that as a big question for a long time. And candidly, pretty soon here, Lincoln's going to have way more air conditioning facilities than we do on any of the other facilities on base. And so back to the 1,100, that's almost that's actually over a fifth of the inventory. Then will be renovated. Okay, good stuff. And you know that gets into, so I have my priorities for Joint Base Lewis McChord are more joint, gets to our DoD mission set, Army and Air Force mission sets, more community and more family oriented. And so you guys really have key parts in 2 of those priorities of more community and more family. We house the families that live on base and build communities and capabilities for people to interact with each other in when they live on base. And you guys are a key part of making it, when people come on base, we want them to say, I'm home. This is my home, and you guys are a key part of that. What are some other things we're doing in that vein?
Well, thank you. At Lincoln, we take the feedback that we get from our families very serious, and we have different platforms to receive that feedback. We have the Satisfax surveys that go out. That platform is a great platform for us to review feedback from our families, so our families know they're being heard. And also the annual Army survey that goes out is another way for our families' voices to be heard. We constantly review those comments at all levels of Lincoln. And what we can do then with that feedback is execute and create action on the ground. And we're going to see that this year in several areas. One area that we've heard a lot about in surveys and as we review feedback is parking. We're going to be adding parking areas behind the Greenwood multiplexes this year, which will help that area back there. We also have a prototype in Clarkdale that we've established for parking, where in some areas you may find where vehicles would park up on little areas of grass. We've created a formula where we can turn that area into a nice little parking stall, and we're going to use that prototype in several other communities as we move forward. This year, we're also going to see new fences going up in several different communities. We're going to see carports being converted into garages in Beechwood and Madigan later this year. And then we've just completed brand new parks. We've got parks that have gone up in Discovery Village, 2 parks, Heartwood, as well as Olympic Grove. So we're really excited about all those projects that are coming down the pipe.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, it's perfect timing. You mentioned about the parking behind the Greenwood. Actually, we just drove through that one, and that's a needed thing. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah.
You mentioned really quick the stop move. It's a DoD policy that goes into effect now. We just received word a couple days ago now through June 30th. What can residents expect in that time between now and June 30th for some of the things that we're doing on base?
Yeah, so a couple things. So when we talk about our important mission right now is to get as many homes ready for move-in as possible. And then at the same time, we talked about for our current residents here, they're going to see us actively working as we are part of the critical infrastructure. Here. We're going to be continuing to execute our emergency and urgent requests right now, as we've been doing, and as well as routine exterior requests. And so that's important there. And then we are going to continue to follow up with our wait list aggressively right now, making sure that as we're getting these homes ready for move-in, that we are in touch with our families that are waiting to get into housing here and giving really good, genuine follow-up to those families.
Yeah, good. Hey, that brings up a good point that I wanted to hit on too. So about a year ago now, we the whole DoD entered into this housing crisis. Tell me what we've seen here on JBLM in that vein, and just keep kind of, for everybody on the feed, kind of walk us through what we've done here on base through that time.
Yeah.
Some of the things that that you've seen and that you've changed, improved.
Okay.
Good. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. We of course have seen displaced families over this last year.
Yeah.
And at Lincoln, we never want to have to displace a family for a maintenance concern. And as we've heard from General Perna recently, even one family displaced is too many. And we really want to focus on making sure that we're doing a good job taking care of our families and working to get those homes repaired so we can get them back in. And we are very proud of the team here in significantly reducing the overall number of displaced families at just 6 families today.
I was about to ask, how many is it today?
Six families that are displaced. And then with new Army guidance that has come out recently, with this new Army guidance relative to displaced families, there's an emphasis now to make sure that when we are displacing a family, that we are finding a temporary accommodation that has adequate cooking facilities. And that's really important because we want to make sure that our families are as comfortable as possible when they're not in their home. So what we've done to adhere to that is we've increased the amount of guest suites, or what we would call temporary homes, here on the installation that have full kitchens, where we would first go to and putting a family in and displacing a family before a hotel in the future. And then we've also established a one point of contact relative to communication and customer service when we do have a displaced family. And that is really important, making sure that we're continuing to follow up with that family and give an effective timetable on when that family can expect to return to their homes. We recognize that there may be times that a family does need to be displaced. And we may have a water heater that goes bad, and we have to shut off water to a home. And in that situation, we would need to displace a family. Or if we have a kitchen that has repairs that need to happen where we're having to take a kitchen offline, it loses its functionality, we would need to displace a family. But now we have that formula to go to.
I'm glad you brought that up, and thank you for walking us through the specificities of that. So on both the government side and on Lincoln Military Housing side, anytime there's a family displaced, we're keenly interested in any one of those families that we have to displace. There will be times where, as Nathaniel just said, a family does need to be displaced. And if you've been one of those families displaced, I think you probably already understand this. For those that don't or haven't been, I will give you a couple examples. He mentioned a couple already. If you have one bathroom and that bathroom is not usable, clearly we need to displace you. If you have a kitchen that we need to go in and redo some plumbing behind the kitchen, and you don't have access to the sink or to the stove or something like that, probably need to displace for a couple days. I think we're way down to 6 is the number we're down to now. So clearly we're we've reduced that number down from what it was before. And you also just mentioned that now the priority is, instead of going into a hotel, which we were doing, I think, for 4 or 5 months there, a lot of folks were going into hotels on base and off base. Now I think we're able to move people directly into a home.
Yeah.
And then move them back into their original home.
That's right. That's right. And another key piece to this, and with the new Army guidance, is that there are situations where if we do need to transfer a family and find an alternative home for a family, the new Army guidance tells us, and we adhere to this, that we find a comparable home. And that's really important, because we don't want to ever have to have kids taken out of a school and move to a different school. And that's an important piece to this, is that we'd like to keep everyone in the same school, and so we find a comparable home.
Yep, absolutely. That's a great point you bring up about school districts. So, you've heard us mention several times on a lot of these town halls, and we've even had a focused, dedicated town hall specifically for schools. Clearly not quite as important right now, since all the schools in Washington are closed down for the rest of the year. But when schools start back up in the fall, there are specific areas of base that are assigned to specific school districts. And so keeping people in the same school district is extremely important. And we've been able to do that, I think, in almost every case. If we've only dealt with a couple of specific cases where it just wasn't possible to keep somebody for the time that they were displaced in the exact same bus route, even. But I think we've been able to keep nearly everybody for sure in the same school district, if not on the exact same bus route. So thanks for doing that through that time where we did have several displacements around the entire base. And now, again, just to reemphasize, much less of an issue now that we have the displacements are down quite a bit. And you mentioned DA policy about the 30 days. If they're displaced for more than 30 days, then we need to move them to a different home. Do you see any issues with instituting that policy here on JBLM?
No, not at all. And I think what's helped a lot with that process too is, and we touched on it a little bit earlier, is having that one point of contact for our families, where we are able to do a good job of listening and then providing that genuine communication and having a good understanding of what the needs of that family truly are, so that we can do what's best for that family.
Yeah, good point. This is a chance for me to throw in a specific comment here. When Nathaniel talks about one point of contact, he means within LMH, and I think you mean by housing area, and then of course there's the one point of contact if they're displaced. There's one person that takes over the communications for all of the specific people that are displaced. So those 6 families right now, you have one point of contact as well. As well as the one point of contact within LMH, we have one point of contact within the Government Housing Services Office. We talk about the HSO office right over there right over here next to just by the commissary. And I'll give out their phone number. If you have any, you know how to get a hold of Lincoln, and that's through the app, through the phone number. Probably I'll give you a chance here to put out the main phone number again for people that might not have that. And then through the district managers, and there's multiple avenues. I'd say priority probably is the phone, and then the app, right? Right,
and especially if there's an emergency or urgent request, we really want our families to contact the Lincoln at Your Service at the 1-888-578-4141 for emergency or urgent requests.
Yeah, good point. In order to get timely response, because emergency response orders, emergency work orders, you're responding within how long?
We are still doing within 24 hours.
Okay. So
immediately.
Okay, and then the app, and if you haven't used the app, I'm a resident on base, as are many of those listening in. If you haven't used the app already, I got, you get a response 24, 48 hours on that as well. But I'll reemphasize what he said too. If it's urgent or emergency, the phone call is probably better. You're talking with a person on the other end of the line. They're immediately routing it. The app works very well as well.
And just to clarify, if it's an emergency request, it's within 4 hours. So that response is immediate.
Thank you. Thank you. Good point. Okay. And I promised, I'm sorry to go back to what I was saying a second ago, to give out the number for our housing services office here on base. So if you need any government specific, you have a question, a request, an issue, a concern, please call our RCI office, our HSO office at 253-966-2888. 966-2888, and we'll have somebody that's on the government side at the Housing Services Office that can help. And that kind of goes back to the again, I'll just reemphasize the partnership here on base, which is the government, side, hence the reason I'm up here, and then the Lincoln military side, Nathaniel up here representing your entire workforce. to ensure that we have the continue to maintain the quality housing that we have here on base for all of the residents. I got a question this morning on a separate, totally separate Zoom meeting that I was on. People from around the local community. I had Tacoma and Lakewood and Lacey and some other folks on there, and they asked, are we considering, when are we going to build more homes on base? And I'll kind of pre-answer some of that, and I'll ask you to join in a little bit. The DoD assesses the need for housing on base through a housing market analysis, an HMA, and that's done routinely, not every year. We did just do another one this spring, though. The last one we had showed that we do need to build more housing on base, that we have there's less homes on base than are needed for the current population, active duty and guard and reserve that live in and around the area and can live on base. So I know we've got one specific project in the timeline in the future to build on base. Yeah. What can amplify that a little bit?
No, in our long-term plan, we certainly do have plans to develop and have new construction. And the one area you're talking about is Lewis North in Meriwether. So that is absolutely in the long-term plans to put up new homes in Meriwether.
Yeah, good. Okay, thanks. And we'll continue to assess that. We'll continue to assess the housing market analysis with any requirements for on-base housing and continue to work because right now they mentioned the 1,100 homes to renovate. Those will be like new, but they'll still be part of the original portfolio, the 5,159. And then we'll look to build even more homes in the future as this long-term partnership continues. Okay, tell me about anything. Is there anything? Let's talk about COVID-19 for a second. This has affected the entire base. This has clearly affected our entire population. Yeah. Has it affected any of your folks?
So it's important to say that, at Lincoln, we recognize we are part of the critical infrastructure. We touched on it a little bit earlier. And I'm so proud of the team that continues to forge in every day, recognizing that we need to be here to support our military families. Very important. Now, that being said, we have seen where we've closed some amenities. We've closed our community centers. We have had our district offices closed, but still been available to take care of our families and following up. We are still completing emergency and urgent requests. And then at this time, we are evaluating when we potentially would be able to restart the routine requests. And when that time comes, we will communicate that out directly.
Good, thanks. And that's spot on. It's exactly what we're doing on the government side as well with the DPW. So thanks again for continuing the communications on that. And how we do that. And you mentioned about the criticality of being here and continuing the work that we're doing, and that gets to just the basics of human necessity, right? We need food, clothing, and shelter. And we need community. Food, clothing, shelter, and community. We talk about it all the time on the broader Facebook town halls. The reason we've kept the commissaries open, the reason we've kept the exchanges open, food, clothing, shelter, and community. Obviously, the reason I'm glad you guys you folks are still here and still, again, as I mentioned at the beginning, surging beyond what you were even doing before. Some overtime, some additional crews coming in, some third-party contractors to help. And a lot of those folks have been focused on finishing up getting any displacements closed out, and then continuing to make homes available for any residents coming in. Now, we're not going to, June 30th, we're not probably going to be moving a whole lot of new people to JBLM. But what can we do for people that are in the local community but want to move on base?
Yeah, absolutely. And so we hit on this a little bit earlier, but it's important that we're continuing to follow up with our wait list and give that genuine contact with those families and make sure that they're frequently updated on where we're at with in their particular wait list that they're trying to get into, the neighborhood they're trying to get into, as far as getting additional homes ready for move-in. And then communicating with those families as soon as we do have a home ready, and we can assign that home and working down our wait list. And so that consistent follow-up weekly with that wait list is very important.
Okay. Do you expect any upticks in those over the next month or so?
I will say that the stop move order that's in place, of course, is causing a little bit of a hiccup there.
Because people aren't moving out either.
Right. But we do understand that there are families that are here now, and are available to move in when we get homes available. And so definitely those families that are here will be in contact with as we get homes ready.
Yeah. So if you're on the wait list, maybe prepare for a phone call in the next few weeks as they continue to turn some homes that have been vacant for a little while. Is we've received that question I know past couple of town halls that people, they live next to a home that's been vacant for a couple months, and that could be for a couple of reasons. It could be it could be because the home has somebody that's ready to move in and just hasn't moved in yet. It could be because the home is in between maintenance. Somebody moved out and we're trying to get it to go in and get it reconfigured and ready for the new resident, or it could be because there's renovations going on, full major renovations going on, because you get the 3 specific neighborhoods that are doing full renovations to bring those up. And those were, tell me those neighborhoods again.
Heartwood, New Hillside, and Davis Hill.
Okay. And when we do that, what will be the process for, how can we keep to ensure that people are involved in that process? Right?
No, I think that's a great question. So what we'll do is we will host, and we did this at Heartwood when we put together our initial scopes and prototypes. We will host open houses, and we'll invite families in to review the scope and see the renovation that we've done. And we'll definitely do that with New Hillside and Davis Hill as we get those scopes and prototypes ready to go. And then we will work with those families that are in those existing neighborhoods to transfer over to those newly renovated homes as they're coming online and ready for moving. Good.
Yeah, I remember walking through that Heartwood home you had that you did the major renovations in, and that I think there's a resident living in now. I think we moved somebody into that home, right? But before we moved the resident in, we gave a chance for leaders to walk through, obviously for families to walk through and give their input. And I think you took back from those walkthroughs some key changes that you wanted to make. So
one which was where we had in the bedrooms, we had initially in our prototype carpet still in the bedrooms, and just listening to our feedback from our families, I said, hey, why don't we just do hard surface flooring throughout? And so we made that decision. Then moving forward as part of that renovation, that's what we'll do.
Now remind me again. I remember walking through there. There was hardwood floors throughout the home. It was, of course, they new walls, almost like you walk in, the house didn't even really look the same. It was new walls, new structures, new island in the kitchen, new
plumbing, new electrical.
That's right, because it was slab plumbing before, so you put it into the walls, etc. Took some of that. It was a new powder room where you walk into the bathroom, reuse some space differently. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, with that Heartwood renovation, we were able to adjust the floor plan slightly to make better use of the space.
There you go.
And create more of an open concept, and that's really important. People really like
similar for the other 2 neighborhoods as well, you think?
There are going to be a little bit different variations, but some of the consistence that we'll see throughout those I touched on is going to be the plumbing, the electrical, the hard surface flooring, and then, of course, the new kitchens, new bathrooms. And then the air conditioning, which is an important piece.
Exactly. Yep. Back to the plumbing one more time. I know that's the reason we've had a lot of residents displaced is some plumbing leaks. So clearly we're getting ahead of that in those 3 neighborhoods. Almost a complete redo, right down to the studs, as we mentioned. What else for other neighborhoods can we?
Well, we do have an annual preventative maintenance program, and so we'll continue to be in every home every year as we go through and see if there's any issues. But what's really a critical component there is if there ever is a concern, we want to make sure that our families are contacting us, and certainly if there ever was a concern in a home, we want to come assess the home and see what's going on, and so we want to be very proactive with that.
And when we go in, what's the walk me through the sort of what it looks like if I'm a resident and I submit a work order, come in, do the work order. Walk me through the kind of the communication channels. How do we make sure that there's communication with the residents, that they know what the status of their work order is? If it's able to be done, of course, that's pretty clean. They come and do the work order and your work order is done and leave. But what if my work order isn't able to be done? How do we keep the communication channels?
Well, that needs to be a schedule that's laid out for you then. If I'm telling you that maybe I have to get a contractor to help us or vendor support or bring in additional resources, I should be communicating that to you immediately and laying out what that schedule looks like so you know effectively when that repair is going to be completed.
Okay, good. All right, thanks. Appreciate it. Okay. Any other critical things you want to talk about before we get to some Q&A?
Well, I think, what about this new whole Bill of Rights thing?
No, yeah. Thank you. Actually, we had that. I remember we had that on the agenda, actually. So, the Bill of Rights is, if you're not familiar with the Bill of Rights, this has been publicized a little bit through DoD channels. I think we've posted it on our Facebook page a while ago. 15 items in the Bill of Rights that the Senate was keenly interested in throughout this time last year as the Senate hearings with all the leaders from all the services came in, and they came up with 15 items that they would agree that all of the government partners and all of the housing partners agree that this is what a resident needs when they live on base. And 12 of those, I think, already done. In fact, 12 of them we were sort of already really doing here on JBLM. 3 of them, the Department of the Army and the Navy and Air Force are still working through how to make sure that the Senate intent for that word, Senate and congressional intent for that Bill of Rights is in placed properly at each local level. One of those, though, we actually are ahead on already, and that's sort of the maintenance history. The Bill of Rights was give residents access to their maintenance history. Yeah. I think we've actually already got that one as well, right? Yeah. The other 2 have to do with how to withhold rent if needed, and that's something that the DoD is continuing to work on the policy for, and so a whole lot more to follow on that, and that really is up to the DoD and the Department of the Army and Department of the Air Force to continue to work with for how we implement here at JBLM. But any other thoughts on that?
The withholding rent piece isn't something that would happen, but I will say that, and this is really critical here, is that many of the things that are already in the Bill of Rights, we've already implemented here at JBLM under Lincoln, which is great. But even if something is not in the Bill of Rights, the most important thing for us here is that we're going to still be here to take care of our families. Yeah. And if we can leave every day, come to work every day, leave every day knowing that we're taking care of the families that serve this great nation, then we will be successful. And if we put our focus there, it's a win for all JBLM.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Good point. Let me make sure we're not missing anything else we were going to talk about here. We talked about displaced. We talked about communications, displacement guidelines. Talked a little bit about COVID-19, Tenant Bill of Rights. Thank you for the reminder on that. And if I misspoke on the rent piece, thanks for the clarification, because again, that one is still working through. I want to reemphasize that one. That one is still working through DoD and DA. So more to follow on that one. We don't have a lot of clarity on that one right now, and I apologize, but that's working through. We have to continue to let that kind of work through discussions with Congress, et cetera, to finalize that. So we won't be able to answer any specific questions on that one today. But in that vein, what I do want to do is go ahead and move to take a couple of questions here. Great. All right. Thank you. All right. First question. I think I'm going to hand this one to you. I understand Lincoln offices are currently closed. I just arrived. How can I apply for housing?
All right. Well, thank you very much for that question. Easy. Just call 253-912-2112, and our leasing team is standing by ready to help you.
Okay. Speaking of, what is the wait list right now? What can they expect?
Well, it varies, of course, by neighborhood. Yep. And so right now we have quite a bit of demand that we see on the wait list currently, but that leasing team does a very good job at setting expectations ahead of time and letting that family know, depending on what their needs are, what they could be looking at.
Yeah, that's even better. Yeah. That's even better than the question I was asking. But the fact that we're openly communicating with people, I think, is the key piece to remember that there's families looking to move on base, and it's sort of it's a good problem to have, right? We have a long wait list. We have people that want to live on base. I say it's a good problem because it is a problem, right? When we have people that want to move on base. So we do understand that there are residents out there that want to move on base, but right now we do have quite a long wait list on JBLM. Yeah. We're fortunate that we do have great housing here, and we live in a great area. So if you're one of those people that's on the wait list, I will tell you that it is a relatively long wait list right now, but stay on that. If you want to move on base, keep your name on there. You will receive a call sometime, and I can't tell you exactly when. These guys know the exact math of how that works, because the wait list has so many criteria in it: size of family, preferred neighborhood, rank. There's so many variables that go into that. It's a very hard. It's a very consistent, ongoing. I know you have a very clean process with how that works, but it is still a relatively long list. But if you want to live on base, stay on the list, and you'll get a call. All right, thanks. Okay, from Zach. With the Auto Skills Center closed, is housing reducing the restrictions for doing self-maintenance on vehicles on post? as long as proper precautions are taken? And is there a timeline for the center to reopen? So, Zach, I appreciate the question. Thank you. No, we are not going to reduce the restrictions for vehicles in maintenance on base really anywhere. But I will tell you, we are looking at that opening up those autocraft centers on base is one of the things we are already looking at. I can't tell you exactly when we're going to open them, but it will be one of the things that we do reopen very quickly. It probably won't be number one, but it'll be very shortly thereafter that we do want to get those reopened. I think those are areas where we can relatively easily keep physical distancing. We won't reopen them before Washington State. We're following in line with Washington State on this, with Centers for Disease Control, with the whole of government, as we've mentioned several times. But but I will tell you, I know exactly where you're coming from. I want to get those things reopened as well, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible on that. Okay, current restrictions remain in effect for both environmental spills and safety concerns. However, MWR activities will become. This is a preparatory answer for the answer that I already gave. But bottom line, we already answered it. Why are the playgrounds still open when we should be social distancing? I'll take this one first, and then I'll hand it over to you if you have any amplification. The reason I want to take this one first, while it seems like a Lincoln question, this actually, I appreciate their partnership, and they're actually following mainly along with government guidance on this. So we have 50 plus playgrounds around the entire base. Some owned by Lincoln, some owned by the government, MWR playgrounds essentially. So we've talked about this multiple times in the past. And what we wanted to do was have one consistent answer across the entire base for what playgrounds look like. And so what we've come to, and again, I appreciate the consistency across the base, is that playgrounds are open because the preventive maintenance and the preventive health folks have given us several readings on this, that they are very low risk for any transference on the playground itself. What we do know is that we have to keep physical distancing while on the playground. So the playgrounds are open for use if you want to use them as a family unit, but maintain physical distancing while on the playground. If you're concerned about the playground, then don't use them. They do remain open though for people that want to go out there as a family and use the playgrounds. And that is across the board for MWR and for Lincoln playgrounds. And we've put up some signage that essentially says, play at your own risk. Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts or
nope,
comments?
That covers it.
Yeah.
That's great.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Good question. Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, so from Yesenia, how can tenants know if our home was a displaced home or affected by mold? Let me again, kind of, I'll take a little bit of an answer on this, and then if you want to jump in on this. Thanks for the question, Yesenia. I think this goes to the question, the thing we were talking about earlier about we want to make sure that every home on base is quality and is safe for residents. So interesting thing about the housing crisis overall across the nation is mold made the headlines for the housing crisis for a long time. But by far the vast majority of homes on JBLM for displacements and for housing issues was, I think we've talked about this already, was for plumbing, right? Yeah. So give me your thoughts on whether a resident might be concerned.
So I think it's important to say on this piece is that we have a very robust process in making a home ready for move-in, which includes a checklist that we go through, and then also in our partnership with the government, that every home is inspected by the Army prior to move-in. Right. And that is a critical piece there, so that when we do move a family in, we can be confident that home is good quality. Yeah, great point. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. That's again, that's something we probably should have mentioned earlier, is again, as part of the partnership, anytime the Lincoln finishes a home, government goes in and inspects with our own checklist, and then that home says resident ready to move in.
And if we've had very low incidence of mold in any of the homes up here at JBLM, again, it's just been, if we've had to displace somebody, it's been because of plumbing. But as we go in, that is a thorough check of every crack, every crevice. And so we, the home is certified safe to move in through quality assurance and quality control checks on both sides, Lincoln and government. Okay, Alyssa, my husband is going to PCS there from AIT in the next couple of weeks, Army for Advanced Individual Training, AIT, in the next couple of weeks. Will families be able to move right away, or do we have to wait due to COVID? So I'll give you this too, and I'll take a little bit of the answer, and then you can have it, because I think this gets into part of an Army policy question, and then how does a family move in? So we're working closely with all of the TRADOC bases, the Training and Doctrine Command bases, where they do initial entry training and AIT, Advanced Individual Training, before a soldier or airman comes to JBLM. And there are a few bases right now that are still planning on shipping us their new service members. And so it sounds like this family is one of them. So welcome to JBLM here shortly. We're glad you're coming. You're one of very few, because a lot of this pipeline has been turned off, but we are absolutely ready to receive you, in-process you. And then as far as getting a home, go ahead.
Yeah, and I would say that COVID is not delaying our ability to move families in at all. And so, again, like we've spoken about today, what's most important is that we are working diligently to get homes ready for move-in, and we'll be following up with that wait list to be able to assign those homes as soon as possible.
Yeah, good. So it's two-part answer to your question there is that if the DA policy allows you to move in, great, welcome to JBLM, and that's a DA, Department of Defense, Department of the Army restriction on how things move within COVID times, because very few people are moving. But then once you're here, then we'll get you on the wait list and hopefully get you into a home soon. I think I'm gonna give this one to you too. What can I do if I am moving or ETSing, leaving the service, moving out of housing essentially, and need to get rid of bulk waste?
Okay. Well, thank you. Great question. For any families that are going to be moving out in the next 30 days, we need to be in contact with you, talking to you about an alternative option that we've set up for our move outs. As far as for other families that may be looking on where they can dump their bulk items, we have heard that the landfill in Lacey, the local landfill, is still open. But if you are pending move out and we have not yet contacted you to talk to you about that alternative option, please do contact your district office and we'll quickly follow up with you.
Yeah, thanks for doing that too, because I know that's above and beyond, because this COVID time is affecting us in ways we never would have thought. And so you've seen we've had to close the recycling center on base. Their bulk pickup is not continuing the way it used to, because that's a outside LeMay company that is following their own processes, and the landfills are closing, so they have less to do. It's a step-by-step process that has affected us across the entire base. So thanks for what you're doing to help out your residents. That's really above and beyond. We hope to get the recycling center opened as soon as possible as well. I know this, not specifically the answer to this question, but sort of co-aligned with it, because I'm sure you'll have a lot of recycling stuff that you'll want to get rid of when you move out as well. And I can't give you an exact answer on when that's going to open, but I'll tell you we're asking daily and to get an update on that. Okay, I think we've kind of wrapped up most of the areas we wanted to talk about and answered several key questions here. I think what I'll close off with, and then I'll give you a chance to say anything you want, Nathaniel, to kind of close out. I'll just say thanks again for the partnership on base. Long time, already a decade plus in the making for this housing partnership between the government and the RCI, specifically here on JBLM. And I'm glad you all are here to take care of the 5,159 homes and soon to be more. Well, not exactly soon to be more, but in the future we'll build more, even more homes. But very soon it'll be the 1,100 renovated homes to take care of the residents that are on base now. So short-term, mid-term, and long-term improvements going on around base to take care of residents immediately and here today. If you'll be here with us through the next year, you'll see entire districts kind of going through some renovations, and then long-term building new homes and looking to take care of JBLM for 20, 30 years into the future. So I appreciate what you all do and appreciate the partnership of taking care of our families on base in order to keep this family-oriented and community-oriented base making this a great place to be. Still one of the most requested bases in the DoD,
Yes.
and clearly that shows through the wait list.
Yeah.
But I know we're working down through that too. But go ahead.
Well,
Give me your thoughts.
thank you, sir. We're very excited about some of the projects that I talked about today that are going to make this a better overall place to live here at JBLM, and certainly honored to be part of the critical infrastructure that supports our families. And we're so privileged to be able to take care of our families here and to be part of the mission at home. It is very crucial to our armed forces and to the United States.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Outstanding. All right. Thanks for joining us. I will say one more thing. If you have any other further questions, please please continue to ask them. We'll keep this while we'll drop off this feed here. Thanks again for joining us. We'll keep the comments section open for a little while. Please continue to ask your questions. We'll either get back to you immediately in the comments section there on Facebook, or we'll take your name down and answer you later if the question requires a little bit of research. Please keep them coming. Thank you again for joining us. Please tune in to any of the other 11 o'clock targeted specific town halls that we have during COVID times, and we'll keep up some of this communication. We've learned a lot of things in COVID times. We've learned better ways to communicate through virtual means and through things like this, Facebook and updates, and please continue to tune into all of these updates and look for the updates on the Facebook feed, Joint Base Lewis McChord Facebook group, the official webpage, home.army.mil/Lewis McChord, where you'll get all of the updates and all of the links to all of these opportunities. And of course, Lincoln Military Housing is on there as far as how to find a home. So thank you again for joining us, and have a great rest of the week.
Thank you.